Alright, on today's video we're going to be looking at the rebuild or the refurbishment of my 1950-51 Mercury Flathead V8. Any eagle-eyed viewer will notice that there's two different engines in this video that I'm making. The Mercury engine that I originally built, I didn't have cameras at the time or completely forgot to take any footage. So when I was later working on a earlier style engine, the teardown and procedures that I do are actually all the same, so I just threw it in to help make this video a little bit better. Now, we don't know much history on this engine. We can tell that it was pulled out of a truck at some point because it doesn't exactly have the Mercury intake manifold pan or a few other things on it. We know that it ran when it was pulled, but after 20 years of sitting on a shelf, when we turned it over, we weren't making compression. So we ended up pulling the spark plugs out and found a few issues, such as the stuck valves. So when we pulled the intake manifold out, we found out why the valves were stuck. We found a nice little mouse nest in there. So teardown commenced. Ended up doing all the basics first. Scraping all the mud, dirt, crust, rust, and getting it all off. We pulled the heads apart and we discovered that the chambers were full of a large buildup of carbon. Scraped it all out with a chisel, then we moved on to wire wheel brushes and actually cleaned up to a fairly nice, almost new condition. Well, at least in my opinion anyways. So a little bit of advice: if anybody ends up working on these flathead engines or taking valve trains apart, invest in the proper tooling to take everything apart. We just used a pry bar hammer and a little magnet stick to grab all the keepers, tearing this apart. Trust me, if I had the proper tooling to put it back together, it would have made things so much easier. So once we get the valves out, as you can see, the valve seats needed a little bit of work. Luckily, we were able to get a valve grinder from a fellow enthusiast. Gave the seats a quick touch up with the grinder, new valves, lapped it. They turned out quite nice actually. So got all the valves put back in, lashed, did all the timing, threw the heads on, and flipped it over on the floor. This is so we could put the pan gasket on and actually start painting it as well. We went with 8N Ford Gray. Yeah, nothing original. Got it put on the stand, transmission put on it, converted it over to a Chevy single wire alternator, so we got 24 volts, and we also went with a 12 volt electronic ignition, so no more points. All we have to do now is fire it up. So that's my quick refurbishment of an engine. Yeah, I didn't pitch the bottom end. There could have been a lot more done to it, but this is just on a budget, and for how much I'm going to be driving this truck, there isn't real need to do too much more. Not this time. So maybe you'll see this engine being torn apart in a future video, but you will be seeing it again as it's being dropped into the frame. Until next time, enjoy.